Hey guys, Rollout here, and welcome back. This was kind of a rough week for me, to be honest. I experienced a good few days of genuine builder's block for the first time in a while. But despite my failures, I still managed some progress on a couple of projects and even helped a friend out with his own. Oh, also, there's been kind of this annoying feedback in the background of these videos that you might have noticed. And at first I thought it was just like the fan on my computer, but it turns out that it was a dying USB adapter as the source of the noise. And I've solved that issue, but now my laptop doesn't have enough USB ports for my mouse and my second monitor, so this show is a little bit more tedious to make until I get a new computer. But if you want to help me out with that, you can consider supporting me on Patreon, where I post content every single day. Of course, you can also support Builder's Block by liking this video and sharing it with your friends. With that out of the way, let's jump right in. So I wanted to start the week off strong with a transformer. Specifically a transformer that utilizes these very obscure toe ball elements. I think they're used in the steering mechanisms for a couple of Technic sets, but they're very strangely shaped, and I thought I would experiment with it. Now this attempt started off pretty strong, I think. There's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot of connection points on the top. There's some connection points on the side. It technically functions. I mean, it has this folded up mode here. You can see the head tucked into the back, but there were plenty of opportunities to build around that to hide it. I could build into those Technic pins there. Here it is in a hypothetical robot mode shape. Again, building off of those pin connections, I could create panels that kind of fold over the chest to hide some of those gaps. I thought that this had some potential. I thought that it was a good start. And I thought that the fact that I couldn't get it to go anywhere at this point was just a momentary thing. This is how a lot of my transformers start. I build kind of a mechanism that I can't get to go anywhere. So I give it a rest, I take a break, and then I come back on another day and I have a creative spark. Imagination happens, magic happens, and I come up with a therapist or an auxiliary. But it doesn't always happen that way. And in this case, unfortunately, it didn't. Because on day 2, I still couldn't make this work. I wasn't happy with anything I built onto this frame. So I thought about approaching it from a different angle. I repositioned all of these pieces. I swapped them around. I tried coming at it from a different perspective. And even though this isn't nearly as good of a robot mode silhouette here, it's something different. And in alt mode, it gives me a lot more opportunity for attaching pieces. Like before, there were several surfaces that I really couldn't attach anything to simply because of the transformation, and this got rid of that problem. But even then, even with that freedom, I still could not get this to work, and I just became fed up with the limitations of this weird piece. It seemed like it had so much potential, but I gave up. I got annoyed and frustrated with it. But on this day, I still was not satisfied with that. I felt like I hadn't done enough on this day for Builder's Block, so I started another project on the same day that I experienced this failure, and I think that was probably ill-advised, because by this point, I was just annoyed, and of course I wasn't going to be happy with whatever else I built. Regardless, I continued my Goyusha project for the Super Dimensional Robo Die Card Fight Vanguard project, I suppose. And this is how far I got before I gave up on this as well. When I started this, I was still clinging to the idea that at this scale, I could possibly make it transform. And by the time I got here, I realized that even Goyusha, the smallest of the group, just has some nonsense transformation mechanics that are anime magic that cannot happen. And That annoyed me even more, and even though I think this looks fine, I built him at this scale because there is a 1x1 tile that has a 1 printed on it. All of the Daiusha elements have numbers on them, and I thought that would be perfect for this guy. But especially at this scale, I just feel like the transformation can't be done. And that got to me once again, and I gave up with this. I think it looks fine, but I wasn't having it. I just had to quit on this day. This was my first real brush with Builder's Block in a long while, and that kind of sucks. But on the next day, I thought about continuing this project from a different angle. I thought maybe I could build one of the other units of Daiusha. I don't have to start with Goyusha. And so I built a Dimensional Robo Die Battles. Now, I started this project with the intention that it would transform as well. But about halfway through, I decided to scrap that. However, I was sick of giving up. I was sick of getting partway through something, having this realization that it was impossible to do it the way I wanted to, and then scrapping it. So I thought to myself, why don't I just finish Die Battles as a static model? It doesn't need to transform. It would be cool in its own right to just have all of the units represented physically, even if they don't function, because let's be honest, in the show and, hypothetically on the cards, that transformation is nonsense. So, maybe I'll build all of the units individually, and then someday I'll build a Daiusha styled in the same way. And no, they won't transform, but at least they'll be there. At least they'll be built. So here is my Die Battles, and I think this is a really cool design. I've said it, I love all of the Dimensional Robo designs, this one included. It's kind of weird that they call him a robo, even though he's a vehicle, but there is no pilot. It just drives around and talks like this is a sentient character. Kind of interesting, but pretty cool. Now, in the show, I feel like they misinterpreted the art on the trading card because they have Die Battles fly around with these jets where his wheels should be. You can see that on the card art, you can't really see the wheels themselves. It kind of looks like Die Battles is floating. It's like a hover vehicle of some kind. And so the animators rolled with that. But there actually is an alternate card art that shows the vehicle from behind, and it clearly has wheels. So I probably should have used these like newer 1x1 half circle elements for the wheels, but I only have 2 of those in black instead of 4. So I went with the cheese slopes, and those work just fine. Again, I think this is a really cool design, and it was worth building even though I couldn't get it to transform. You see, this entire back section swings down and becomes the forearm. The cockpit of this vehicle becomes the shoulders of Daiusha, and that is feasible enough. But the thing is that the front wheels sort of flip up underneath the shoulder, which is feasible. It's a little impossible at this scale, but I could see how that would work at a larger scale. What I have an issue with is that the wheels on the back here just completely disappear. I guess you could imagine that maybe they suck up into the forearm, but it's pretty much impossible. I have no idea where those go, and to make it work, I'd have to parts form it, and I really don't want to do that. Now, Die Battles has a partner in the form of Dielander, who forms the other arm, of course. And it's basically the same, it just has a different number on the side, and it's got some guns on top. I did not have the pieces to build both of them side by side, so I just modified Die Battles into Dielander and called it good. So I figured I'd show that off as well. So on the next day, I did something a little bit unprecedented. Now, I've shown off other people's creations on this show before, whether it be at Bricks Cascade or I've seen something online and I've decided to build it myself and I show that off. But even then, like, this is still different. This is something that has never happened on this show. My buddy Starscreamer came over with a mostly finished design, and I helped him finish it. So that was my project for the day, not building something of my own, but helping somebody else with their own model. So this is Starscreamer's Synchro Frame. Yes, his own Synchro Frame. I don't know if this fits into my story. I'll talk about that a little bit in just a minute. However, I think this is a really, really cool design. This guy is called Midnight Crusade, which is an awesome name. I love the concept. I love the silhouette. His weapons are super cool. The color scheme is awesome. You can see he has these like shields that fold up and then they extend into these like scissor weapons, or maybe they're just like clamps. Now he has this little technique on the back of his head, which is awesome. It uses these thin clip pieces along with a T-joint and a couple of rounded elements to kind of sandwich this bucket handle in there. And it's like this really cool micro scale greebling. And initially he was going to make that black, but honestly, I think that the dark tan is a great color accent. It really plays off of the black and the gray and the pink very well. So I think that we probably need to add more of that color somewhere else on the body just to keep that consistent. I think that some of the color choices on this model will change by the time that he showcases it on his channel, but I just wanted it to be complete on some level before I took pictures of it and showed it off on the show. Here it is, fighting against Garudan. And here's my issue with including this character in my story. I think he looks too imposing and too villainous, because I already have the villains of my Synchro Frame universe thought up. I just need to build them. And I think that this guy is too impressive and too imposing to exist in my world while not being part of the villainous faction, if that makes any sense. So I'm unsure if this is canon, but it's going to be a long while before I have enough robots to fill out the cast, and maybe by the time that happens, I'll find a place for this character in the story. So we'll call him semi-canon at the moment, but it is a dope design regardless. I really, really love the way it looks. On the next day, I wanted to build another one of the dimensional robos to go along with my die battles. I thought, hey, let's go all in. Let's try to build as many of the pieces of Dayusha as I possibly can. And now that I've made the decision not to make them transform, it is so freeing because it means I can just build what I see, and it's a lot of fun. So we did it, boys. We cured builder's block because in a single week, I went from feeling like so defeated and so uninspired. I even called in reinforcements. I helped a buddy with his other project, and it really got my creative juices flowing again. So here is the start of the unit that forms the legs of Dayusha. It is an aquatic vehicle, and this is only about a third of it, but you can see that it is much larger than die battles. Here is the card. Here is the source material. Yeah, it's some kind of aquatic vehicle, very interesting. I mean, obviously, it's just a pair of legs folded up, but it seemed feasible. And again, I talked about how I'd like to start tackling projects that are maybe a little bit larger than the things that I usually build, and once again, this is one step in that direction. Here it is from the top. You can see that realistically, like the thigh there will fold out. This yellow piece at the front becomes like knee armor, and then the foot is just chilling in the back there. Here it is from the other side. I think that it's interesting paying attention to the animation, to the Cardfight Vanguard anime, and then comparing that to the card art. Because in the show, Dayusha's leg armor is just entirely red, but you can see that on the card, there's a little bit of white on this piece that exists at the bottom here. So I made sure to include that because that is the reference material that I am working off of. On the next day, I just went ahead, duplicated this, and built the middle section as well. So here is Dimensional Robo Die Mariner all complete. It's kind of a weird submarine thing with wings. I think it looks pretty cool. Once again, this is a little bit larger than some of the things that I usually build. Here it is from the back, from the bottom. Some very interesting techniques going on there. I think it looks great, but once again, making this thing transform would be ridiculous. The entire middle section just disappears. I have no idea where it goes. And again, if I'm going to have to make this thing parts form, why bother? Here it is, along with Die Battles. And now that I have 2/3, if we count Die Lander, done, I do kind of want to attempt a Die Dragon. You saw that in the last episode. His tail forms a piece of Dayusha's sword. And again, since I don't feel the need to make it transform, I do want to attempt that guy once again. He is actually the largest of the group. He's quite a bit larger than even Die Mariner here. So once again, if I am wanting to go a little bit further and build a little bit bigger, that's a good one to try out. I think we've learned some valuable lessons today. I just can't force ideas to work. A new transformer will come to me when the time is right, but I just have to wait for it, and pushing through builder's block often just makes it worse. Sometimes you need to take a break. Special thanks to all of my Patreon supporters, especially my leader class patron Valraven, as always. Until next time, this has been Rollout, signing off.